Awesome. Thanks everybody for coming. Welcome. For anybody who's just joining right now, if you can fill out the attendance form that's on the table, either the paper copy or the QR code, either one is fine. We'll ask you to take attendance at every session so that we count your attendance towards the certificate of program completion, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. So I wanted to say welcome to everyone to our first learning session of the Summer Research and Training, Summer Training and Research Program for 2024. We're really excited to have you as part of Team UHN for this summer, and we hope that you'll have really productive and enriching summers both during your research and in the programming that we'll provide. So my name is Dr. Amanda Berry. There's lots of room in the front. I swear we're not scary. I'm the manager of the Office of Research Trainees. It's my job to support all students, grad students, and postdoctoral researchers. I use the she, her pronouns. I am white. I'm wearing a red dress and a beige jacket, and I have brown hair. I'm joined here by the ORT coordinator, Jordan Beck. I'll let him introduce himself later. Okay, so to get started, first I want to acknowledge the land on which the University Health Network operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. So as the daughter and granddaughters of immigrants, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work here and to learn on this territory. I challenge myself every day to learn more about Canada's Indigenous people, the harm that has been done to them by us colonizers, and the ways that we can work towards reconciliation. On the side here, I have just a map of parts of North America from nativeland.ca. It's a great resource that you can use to learn about the land that you're on. Also, as we get started in research, I encourage everyone to review the Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. So these calls to action were presented in 2015 by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that was based off of 6 years of research and community engagement on the terrible impact of the residential school system in Canada. So these calls provide guidance on how each one of us can work towards reconciliation with Canada's Indigenous peoples, including recommendations for changes in the healthcare system. So as researchers, it's important for all of us to recognize the harmful ways that Indigenous people have been exploited in research, as well as learn best practices for including Indigenous people and Indigenous knowledge. So personally, as I was preparing this, I just learned about how how aspirin first started was because Indigenous people for a really long time were chewing on willow bark, and that was used to relieve pain and ailments. And then colonizers came, learned this, and eventually they shared it widespread. They identified the active compound and then commercialized it into aspirin. And so that's only one example of how we can learn from Indigenous people, but also how they've been exploited. Okay, so to get started for today, I just want to tell you a couple of things. The first thing is that the slides and recording of today's presentation will be shared with all of you. So there'll be lots of QR codes and lots of links, but you'll have access to them after. If you have any questions, raise your hand at any point in time. The second of the half of the workshop will be interactive. We'll be doing an activity together. So we encourage everyone to participate fully. While all the sessions are recorded, there's a lot of benefit to coming in person. You get to meet each other, but also there's going to be sessions with activities as well as networking components. So we really encourage you to come. And lastly, this is a safe space, so we want all participants to be respectful and follow the code of conduct. With that, I will pass it to Jordan.
Hi, so my name is Jordan Beck, as Amanda mentioned. I'm the research training coordinator with the Office of Research Trainees. Just to introduce myself further, I have dark blonde, kind of verging on brown hair. I'm wearing a black sweater. I come from both European and Manitoba Métis backgrounds. And yeah, so I just wanted to highlight a couple of events that are coming up with us. So on top of this program, you're also welcome to and encouraged to attend all of our other programming that we'll be offering over the summertime. We do have one coming up next week, which I think might be of interest to all of you. So we do have a career panel on careers in science communications. So you'll be hearing from professionals in a number of different areas. We'll have a medical and scientific illustrator coming. We have 2 medical writers, as well as a scientific communicator in a donor relations aspect. So again, if you're interested in this, it's happening next week on the 22nd, and you can scan the QR code in the bottom right of the screen to access the registration. And next, something that does occur every month that is hosted by our office are something called drop-in sessions. So these are essentially, as the name sounds, a place where you can drop in. Either myself or Amanda may be there, and you'll have an opportunity to ask us questions. If you're about anything, if you have any questions or looking for any resources, as well as if you're just wanting a place to come and hang out and chat. So we'll be there at a number of different places across UHN. PMCRT, so the research tower over at 101 College. We'll be in this building here, just downstairs, as well as over at the Kremble Discovery Tower if you're working over there. As well as you can pop by on Zoom as well on the last Friday of every month.
Awesome. Okay, so next I just want to remind you of some of the details of the summer program. So the program is designed to augment the amazing research experience that you're going to have in the lab by teaching you some professional development and research skills. So it includes 6 in-person learning sessions, including networking opportunities with fellow summer students, as well as with some career experts and professionals at UHN. We have, like I mentioned, many of the sessions include interactive components. So we really encourage you to attend in person like you're doing today, which is great. The program also includes an in-person research day where you'll all have an opportunity to present your research or share what you learned this summer with a poster presentation. And you can also receive a certificate of program completion if you attend or watch at least 4 of the learning sessions and present at research day. So here are all the dates for all of the different learning sessions. The information is also on our website. You can access it at any point in time. We'll also send out, regular emails, and you'll get calendar invites to everything. I want to mention one specific thing is the research day will be held on August 13th. More information on how to present how to prepare the poster, how to register, and all of that will be shared at the session on July 5th on communications. So that's where you'll learn all about everything you need to know about the research day. Okay, so now we'll finally get started. So we want to talk to you today about all of the things of how you can have a productive summer. And this means inside and outside of labs. So we want to provide tips for how you could get the most out of your research experience in both learning different things, meeting new people, and exploring different career paths. So we'll get started with a little bit of tips of like how to get started at UHN, then some strategies, and then a career exploration activity. Okay, so all of you are here, hopefully have already gotten your UHN photo ID. This is required if you're going to be on site. So if you haven't done that yet, please go to the security office. There's various sites at which you could do that, and you can go get your photo ID done. If you don't know the hours of operations or anything like that, the information is in our handbook that we're going to show on the next slide. You can also find the information online, but make sure you have that ID card because it's mandatory when you're on site. Next step is we want to make sure that you've all completed your onboarding process. So there's lots of steps you have to complete, and hopefully you've all been able to complete that. There's a phone number here if you need help with any of those steps. They'll help you, or if you're not sure if you're done the process, you can also check them out. So the number there is 416-340-4800, extension 5995. The next critical step is receiving your TID and password. Now, if you haven't received your TID and password, then that's a good sign that you haven't completed all of your onboarding steps yet. So hopefully you can complete that. Again, if you need help with this, you can call for assistance. The number for this is 416-340-4357, or you can email help@uhn.ca. Again, all of this information will be provided after. And if you have received your TID and password, you'll have access to all the network things that you need, including your My Learning. And the next step is to complete all of your mandatory training there. So this is important so that you get training on all of the things that all UHN people have to get trained on, but also the role-specific things like clinical research training that you might need for your role. So talk to your admin or your supervisor or your mentor to find out about those additional training and complete them all before you start research. And if you're having any troubles with that, let us know and we can help. So that's all on the technical side. A little bit more, I know that the onboarding process can be really challenging. There's a lot of steps involved and there's a lot to learn about UHN. It's very complicated. UHN consists of 5 different hospitals. We just gained another hospital recently, so that's exciting. And 6 different research institutes. So there's a lot going on. It can be very difficult to navigate. So we have this handbook that we've created. It's a student and postdoc handbook that has all the information that we can think of that we thought would be helpful to you, including a big session on how to get started, how to get connected to different resources and such like that. Research facilities, anything that we think you might need during your time at UHN. Now, some of the sections will be specific for grad students and postdocs, but either way, I think there's a lot in here that could be useful. Even if you don't need it right now, it's a good thing to know and to keep in your back pocket. It's on our website. You can find it at any point in time. It has a great table of who to contact. So it says like, if you have a problem with this, then contact this person. And it can be really helpful for just getting all of that information when you really need it. Beyond that, we want you to know that we're always here for support. So feel free to email us any point in time at ort.admin@uhn.ca. If you have any questions or any concerns with your onboarding, you can also come chat with either me or Jordan after the session. So before I move on to the actual meat of the presentation, any questions there? Very good. Okay, awesome. Okay, so once you're fully onboarded and set up at UHN, you can start mastering the basics of research. So one of the things that I think is critical that a lot of people maybe don't invest enough time in is really learning the basics before they get started. So really investing some time into learning about the research field you're working in, learning about what's going on in the field, what the trends are, what's important, what's of interest to people right now. Also important to learn any background information about your project. So the findings that led to it, the context of where it sits within the lab's research or where inside the field, that can really help you to understand what your role is and what your part of your project is. A really useful thing can be to start with review papers here. That'll be a great way to summarize a lot of different parts of the field at once, and it can often be more accessible than diving straight into primary research papers. And next people forget about is learning about the theory behind all of the methods you're using, all of the techniques and the protocols. This is really important because you don't want to just be following protocols or doing techniques without really understanding how they work. Really understanding the details of how they work will help you to be able to do them properly, to know how to troubleshoot, to know which steps are important, and much, much more. So we really, I think it's important to invest some time into there. Next up, you should learn about any hazards that you are working with and all of the proper safety protocols. We want to make sure that you're safe while you're working in the lab. You can also ask your supervisors and your mentors for any suggestions on papers that they think are useful or foundational for you to read. They usually know, they can suggest the top 3 or 5 papers that they think you should really master. It's really useful to save all these papers using a citation manager. And we'll talk about that later, as well as the libraries will talk about that as well. But it's a great way to save the papers in one place in an organized manner and also re-review these papers as you progress through the project. Sometimes you'll get more information and you'll understand different parts more as you come closer to the end of your summer, as you gain more knowledge and as you can put it more into a context of your project. And lastly, we just recommend that you ask a lot of questions. There's no wrong questions, and it's great to show your curiosity, but also to understand what you're working on better. So there's lots of supports to help you while you're mastering the basics. UHN Libraries has a lot of supports that you have access to. You can get to their website here using the QR code. We'll also send out all the links after. UHN Libraries has a virtual library, so you can access a lot of different journal articles, but it also has lots of really useful workshops, and they also have workshop recordings that you can view on demand. So some of the workshops they have are how to use PubMed to search for papers, searching Medline, how to use EndNote and Mendeley for citation managers, and writing different kinds of reviews. Many of you here might be doing, systematic or literature reviews, and they have resources on that. The Library Information Services are also going to be here next learning session to talk about tips for researchers, and so they'll share a lot of these tips with you. Next up, when you're performing research, it's best not only to understand the background, but also to master the basics and really get an understanding of the best practices for how to do your work. So this can include best practices of how to conduct your research, how to engage with patients, how to perform research ethically, and much, much more. And so we're going to talk about some of the resources that can help you to master those best practices. So the first is a clinical research hub, which has lots of supports for clinical research. I'm sure some of you are performing clinical research projects, which is great. This requires a UHN connection, so you probably can't access the phone right now, but like I said, we'll send out the links later. The clinical research hub is really, really great because it can be a useful resource to understanding the clinical research cycle better. They have steps, break down every step of the life cycle, as well as resources for each step. They have lots of resources for learning more about topics like recruitment, patient recruitment, informed consent, research integrity, research ethics, and risk. So you can really take a deep dive into everything you need to know about clinical research and those kinds of projects. And they also have policies and templates. So if there's any steps that you need to do, they have templates that you can use. Next up, if you're working with patients this summer, I highly encourage you to check out the Pride in Patient Engagement in Research initiative, or PIPER. This is a strategic initiative to engage patients in all steps of the research process. And they have a really, really great website, which has resources on tips on how to engage patients in research. And so this includes a comprehensive toolkit for best practices for engaging patients in research. And it's a great read for all information about how you can incorporate patients more into your research. They also have educational videos on patient engagement and on things like how to write plain language summaries of your work if you want to share it with the public. Next, we have the research quality integration team. So it's every researcher's responsibility to conduct their research responsibly, and the research quality integration team, or RQI, are here to support you through that. They have a fabulous website that has a lot of information on researchers' responsibilities. They have lots of policies that are very integral, all of the policies that you need to follow in your work to ensure that you're doing it at a high ethical standard. They also have information on how to report any research misconduct you might see. And the RQI team also is there to support you with any difficulties you have. So if you have any research integrity concerns or any problems with authorship or anything like that, they do consultations and they can do those anonymously to support you. Next up is research ethics. So again, it's our responsibility as researchers to perform our research ethically. And so research ethics is here to ensure that you know the best practices for ethical conduct related to your project. So if you're working on a project that has been approved by the Research Ethics Board, or REB, it's great for you to be able to review those documents and really understand the protocols and rules. This will help to make sure that you're doing everything as it was outlined and approved at UHN. There's also training if you'd like to learn more about this. So it's available on My Learning, and there's different courses like good clinical research practice, clinical research ethics, informed consent, and more. So you can access all of those courses. Honestly, I highly recommend just going into My Learning and searching the different courses that you have access to and just checking out if there's anything of interest. A lot of them are on demand that you can view at any point in time and can learn some new skills. And then you can also go to the intranet page for the REB and learn about research ethics standards, guidelines, and more. Okay, so that was like the best practices side. But the next step for your research productivity is to set clear goals and align expectations with your mentor or supervisor. And so I think doing this is really critical and a step, again, that a lot of us miss. But having some really good conversations with your mentor or supervisor and really understanding what their expectations are for you and aligning them with yours can make sure that you're on the same page, that you know what they expect of you from this summer. It can ensure that you have good communication throughout the whole summer, and really it'll lead to productivity as you focus on the things that are a priority for them instead of wasting time, like kind of confused about what you should be working on. So the best way to do this, I think, is to open up the conversation and really have clear expectations about certain things. I'm going to give you suggestions here. What I want you to know too is we also ran a mentorship skills program for graduate students and postdocs, and we shared these same lists of things that we hope that they'll align their expectations with you on. So hopefully it can be a two-way conversation about these things. So things like aligning on what hours you're expected to work and where, which days they want you to be on site and things like that, what meetings you're expected to attend. With those meetings too, you can consider like what do they expect you to have ready for different meetings and when do they expect you to present. Things like that are great to know ahead of time. What is the best mode of communication for them? You know, if you're going to be sick one day, how should you contact them and let them know? How often will you meet or check in? I think this is great to have regular contact with your supervisor or mentor, and it's good to set that up ahead of time so you know, and you can be prepared for those meetings. Again, what should you have prepared for meetings or check-ins? Where should you store data? Data management is another really important topic that will be covered next week in the tips for researchers section. They'll go through all of the best practices for storing your data properly. And then again, thinking about timelines, how long do they think that certain tasks should take? And that can help you to build your schedule as also know what their expectations are. Another thing that isn't here, but you can think about is you can have a discussion about authorship and whether it's possible that you could be an author in a publication based off your work at the end of the summer, and what would it take or what accomplishments would you have had to be on that paper. So those are good things to set ahead of time so everybody is on the same page. So overall, some of the big things you might want to discuss that with them are what their goals are for you. What do they expect you to finish in the end of this summer? What do they hope that you'll accomplish? As well as thinking about what your goals are. I think it's important for your supervisor to also know what you want to get out of this summer. So what are your goals and what skills are you hoping to learn or what experiences you'd like to be exposed to? A lot of the times they don't know what you're interested in, but if you say you want to be able to have the opportunity to practice your writing skills, they can provide opportunities like that. Or if you're working with a clinician scientist and you want to have an opportunity to observe their clinical practice, that might be something that's possible that they might not offer to you unless you ask. So good things to just think about what you'd like to get out and to talk to them about. And like I said, understanding what their expectations are for you and what their priorities are can really help you plan to be the most productive and the most successful and really plan out your summer properly. Now, once you're aligned in your expectations and goals, you'll have to make a plan on how to get it all done. And as researchers, this is, no matter what stage you're at, this is the hardest part. There's a million things you have to do as a researcher, as well as many of you might have other things going on in your personal life, like studies or courses or other commitments that you have to balance. And so it's really, really important to have proper time management and organization and to make sure that you get everything that needs to be done. So just some of the responsibilities that you might have this summer includes preparing reagents, reading papers, planning and performing experiments, cleaning up and doing chores. That's one that people often forget to schedule in, attending meetings, attending seminars, coming to these learning sessions, answering emails, updating your lab notebook, and all of the other parts of your life. And so we're going to just try to talk about a little bit of time management skills that can help you with this. So organization can be one of the most powerful tools to increasing productivity because you'll spend less time wasting time thinking about what you should be doing or getting overwhelmed or getting into a task and realizing that there were 3 things that had to be done ahead of time before you could even start that task. So we want to think about, I like making a detailed plan for each week, either doing that on a Friday night or on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, whatever fits best for you, but sitting down and writing out everything that you have to do for that week. Also identifying all of the other scheduled responsibilities that you have, like meetings, seminars, anything that you'll have to fit into your experimental or your research schedule. Think about for each of those meetings or things that you have to attend, is there anything that you have to prepare for? I know there was always a rush to prepare figures for lab meeting, and it's important to think about that and budget that time in to your schedule. You also want to plan for breaks. You want you want to break your goals or projects into smaller tasks that have to be done. And so, you might have one big experiment that actually consists of 40 different tasks. You need to outline those and also outline all of the smaller tasks that need to be done, like preparing reagents and things like that, so that you schedule those in as well. Make sure that you know anything that's contingent on another task or another input, because that'll be important for scheduling as well. And then what's useful is if you estimate how long each task should take. And so this will help you to outline how much time you need to put aside for each different thing. Obviously, it's hard when you're first starting to estimate these things. You can just start and give yourself a little bit of buffer, and then you can learn and adapt as you go on. I like doing calendar blocking as a way to then plan my experiments and my research. It's a tool that can help you really be strategic and intentional about your time. It again means that you have less downtime in between things where you're wondering what you should do next, because you're really planning it and you're blocking it into your calendar. So some things to think about is, once you have all your tasks broken down from the last thing and you have all of the times that you think it should take, you can turn that into a daily schedule and block out times on your calendars for each one of those tasks or activities. Now, when you're doing this, you can make sure you add in times for breaks, because you're not a machine or a robot, you need breaks. Make sure you add in time for your meals, and then also add in lots of time for buffer for things to go wrong. Things always go wrong, it's the way it goes. Or you might forget something that you didn't know you had to do. So it's important you'll stay on task and you'll stay more productive if you buffer in time for those delays. And then another useful tool is to consider your energy levels at different point in the day and see what tasks are better at different times. So for example, some people are more energetic in the morning, so it's better to take on like big thinking hard tasks in the morning, whereas you might want to do more methodical things or things like updating your lab notebook later on in the day when you're more tired. So consider what times of the day would be best for different tasks. A couple of other tips are to review your calendar before the start of the week when you're planning it, as well as each morning. This will really get you to see what you have upcoming for the day and then try as best as possible to stick to that. You can use different colors or patterns to organize different groups of tasks. For example, some people like putting all of one experiment type in one color, all of their meetings in a different color, all of their personal tasks in a different color, whatever works best for you. I like to use timers or reminders. I really like using Pomodoro. It's like a method where you can put on an alarm. It gives you like a 20-minute work time. You work for those 20 minutes and then it forces you to take a 5-minute break. But I like putting timers and saying, like, I'm closing everything I'm working on this one task for the next 20 minutes or the next hour. I won't look at anything else. And it focuses my concentration on that. And so that could be a good way to not be distracted, or to do task switching, where you're trying to focus on something specific, but then something else distracts you and you start working on that other thing and you lose time by going back and forth. Another technique is to schedule similar types of tasks together. So if you have a lot of paperwork to do or a lot of emails, to put them all together so that you're not trying to multitask. And again, it keeps you focused on the same kinds of tasks. And then block big chunks for times where you need a lot of concentration. When you need concentration, it takes you a while to get into that mode, and it can be easy to get pulled out of it, and then it's hard to go back into it. So when you need concentration, block lots of time and try not to get distracted during that time so you can really focus. I find one of the great things about calendar management is it can also help you to learn more about reasonable expectations, as well as what your deadline should be. So while this at first might be really hard to evaluate how long you think tasks will take, over time, you can look at your calendar at the end of the day and see, which tasks actually took you longer than what you thought, or which ones took you shorter. And then when you're planning your schedule for the next week, you can adjust accordingly and make them more accurate. Tracking your time can also help you to make more accurate estimates when you're trying to figure out how long a particular experiment or protocol or project or whatever will complete. So that's really important to help you to understand how long tasks will take. And that will help you too to be able to know when you should say no for things. So I know it's really hard, especially when you're getting started. You always want to say yes to everything that somebody asks you to do. But knowing your calendar and really tracking your calendar will help you understand whether you have time to take on more and whether you should say no. And it's always better to be realistic about that. And the best part about this is you really always do yourself a disservice if you say yes to things that you don't actually have time for, because then you're letting people down. But if you don't overpromise and you say, hey, I don't have time this week, but maybe we could do it next week, or you can prioritize and say, oh, I don't have time, but I can prioritize this if we take something else off my list, then you'll make sure that you're always meeting your deadlines, you're always giving reasonable expectations, instead of saying, yeah, I can do it, when you really can't, and then you're going to miss that deadline or you're going to disappoint them. So I find it's often really helpful to really have good expectations of yourself, a good understanding of how long things take, and then you can be honest to the people who are asking you things. So next up, obviously, this is easy to do if you don't have too much to do, but at some point you might have to start prioritizing if there's not enough time for all the tasks that you're responsible for. And so to prioritize, I think the best thing to do, especially when you're early on, is just to talk to your supervisor or mentor and find out what the priorities are for them, because they're the ones that are going to be most invested. They're the ones that you want to impress the most. So make sure you know what things are most important to them and do those things first. So if you need help and you feel like you have too many tasks and you can't do them all, you can talk to them about which ones are of higher priority that you should do first. As a grad student, this is like so important to me because so many grad students have way too much to do. We always do, and their PIs always give them more projects to do. But if you're always working on your PI's least important or the least favorite project, you're always going to be letting them down. But if you're always working on their most favorite project or their biggest priorities, then you're always going to be making them happy. And sometimes that's not really easy to understand unless you just ask them. It's important to recognize the difference between tasks that are important and tasks that are urgent. So they're not always the same. So you want to prioritize tasks that are important and are urgent first, and always do the tasks that are urgent, unless they're not important, but not important and urgent are kind of unlikely. But for anything that is important but not urgent, you can schedule those. Make sure that they still get done within the week, but they don't have to be your highest priority. And then also consider how much effort will go into each task. So sometimes you have a lot of small tasks that aren't really urgent but need to get done. So you can just block them all together, get them all done so that you cross a lot off of your to-dos at once. So you have more time to focus on those bigger tasks. So one of the biggest things that can derail you in your schedule is distractions, and emails are the biggest distraction. I'm a person who gets emails all day long, and so it can really mess up your focus if you're trying to work on things and you're constantly getting emails that are disrupting your focus. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to minimize the distractions of your email inbox and to keep it under control. The first thing is to check your email at set times throughout the day and ignore it in between. And so you can set aside times, even if it's 5 minutes with every hour, to check in on your inbox and leave it there. I think that's great. Or decide you want to check them at lunch, in the morning, and in the afternoon, whatever works for you, depending on the types of emails you expect and the urgency that you expect them to have. I think especially when you're working in a research lab and you're doing an experiment, and then you maybe see on your watch that you're getting an email in, and then you go to answer that email, but then you're disrupting your protocol, it can really mess things up. So sometimes you need to just clear it away and notice when things aren't as urgent, and you can answer those emails later. Reducing the volume in your inbox is a great thing as well, because then you don't get as many notifications. So unsubscribe to any newsletters and spam. Use folders or to move around your inbox. Lots of people like having a 0 email inbox. That is not my life. I find it too challenging. But I do like to organize my emails so that once I'm done with an email, it either gets deleted, archived, or moved, so that you have only things that are in progress still in your inbox. Now, sometimes you'll get lots and lots of emails all at once. You need to think about how to tackle them. There are 3 main strategies that can be used. The one is the 1-2 minute rule. So this is a strategy where if something's only going to take you 1 or 2 minutes, you should just get it done right away, because then you don't have to think about it anymore. It's no longer on your to-do list. If it's going to take longer, then you can leave it, but getting rid of anything that will be quick. That goes hand in hand with the only handle it once method, and I'm a big fan of this method. I use it all the time, is that you want to deal with every email just once. So if you read it, you just take care of it and you don't let it sit there. And so that can mean just getting it done, so that you don't have to reread it later, you don't forget it, and you don't waste time. And this can be challenging if you get a lot of emails that require a lot of work and they can't always be done at once, but as much as possible, either do them instantly or try to handle them all at once. And when that's not possible, then make sure you flag emails that you have to return to or complete at a later time. And if you're using Outlook, when you flag them, they'll automatically go into your to-do list so that you'll know that you have to handle that at some point. So I think a combination of these strategies can really work to reduce the amount of time that you're spending answering emails and the amount of emails you can forget. There's also now when you're thinking about this, many of you might be getting anxiety if you think about how your boss might be sending you a message and it's urgent and you don't want to miss it by setting times aside for answering your emails. And I have personally always answer my boss's emails right away while ignoring other ones at different times if I can. So I saw this video, which I thought was really cool, of a way you can set up a filter so that your boss's emails or any other important emails are flagged at the top in a different color. So I won't show the video here just because you can watch it later, but it's cool to know what kind of tools are available to you in Outlook or any other email inbox to help you to manage your emails better and make sure you're seeing the important emails and answering them in a timely manner. Okay, so next, just a rule of thumb for professional or work emails, I always recommend that you answer them within 24 hours. It just keeps up the flow of conversation, especially when information is needed. If you need more information and you need more time to gather the answer to somebody's email, that's totally fine. But I think it's a professional courtesy to answer that email within the first 24 hours and say, I got your email, I'm working on it, I'll get back to you. But then at least they know it's being taken care of and that you're not ignoring them. A couple of other tips, especially since UHN is a really complicated, really busy environment where a lot of the people that you're emailing will be very busy. Many staff members work between normal work hours, so 8:30 to 5 or somewhere in between, or a little bit earlier or a little bit later. But when you're emailing these people, try to restrict your emails to these times. You have a better chance of getting a response. Don't assume or don't expect an answer if you email them at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Don't expect an answer right away or at all until Monday morning, because many staff don't work on the weekends or don't work outside of normal hours. And so think strategically about the times. If you need a response, email them during normal working hours and plan those emails appropriately. This protects their work-life balance, but is also just a respectful practice to do. Lots of scientists, clinician scientists, PIs, and healthcare workers are very busy and receive a lot of emails. So they might not respond back to you in 24 hours like I'm telling you to do. They might not even respond back to you in 72 hours. And that's kind of how it goes. They have a lot more emails and it's harder for them to respond. So it's totally okay to email them again in a week and just check in. Have a friendly reminder that they haven't answered and you need a response. If it's urgent, obviously don't wait a whole week, but determine if it's urgent or not and send that reminder. And also think about if there's anybody else that you can ask that question to. Often you can maybe ask the admin to get the answer for you, or flag it to the PI or something. But no, if I miss an email within a week and I haven't responded, I appreciate when people tell me or remind me, because sometimes things just get lost when you have busy email boxes. And lastly is, this one may seem obvious, but it's a big problem. Don't mark something urgent unless it's actually urgent. And just when you're thinking about whether it's urgent or not, think about, is it urgent to you or is it urgent like to the patient care? If this doesn't get answered, is it going to affect patient care? Is it going to have harmful impacts? Will there be harm done? And make a decision like that. We get lots of emails in our ORT inbox, and people will do urgent, respond quickly, whatever, and then it'll be like, oh, am I registered for the ORT? And then they'll see I didn't respond in an hour, and then they'll follow up. Well, that's not urgent. We'll get to it when we get to it. So really understand, I know things may feel important to you, may feel urgent to you, but respect people out there and really think about how urgent something is. Okay, so moving away from that, we're going to talk a little bit about lab notebooks and documentation. This is a skill that's important for every researcher, regardless of whether you're doing wet lab work, clinical work. You need to have meticulous documentation. This becomes especially more important if you're thinking of going into industry at some point. Documentation there is so critical. But here we want to focus on all of the things because documentation is important for reproducibility, making sure that you can repeat your experience, that you have all the information you need, as well as for other people, especially 5 years down the line. If somebody wants to take your lab notebook, they should be able to figure out what you did. It's important when you're publishing to have all the information that you need of what to put in that paper, of what you did. There are also government guidelines and UHN standards that you have to follow, especially if you're doing clinical research. So it's really important that you document all of the information you need. Regularly, research will get audited, especially in the clinical environment. So it's important that you have that information for those audits to show that you're following the government standards. And lastly, if your work has any chance of spinning out into a company or becoming an entrepreneurial thing, it's also important to document for patents and intellectual property. So the overall goal here when you're writing in your notebook or you're doing documentation is to make sure that any single person can pick up your lab notebook or your documentation and they can repeat what you did without having to ask you a single question. And so you want that to be a standalone document where they'll know everything you need. Now, whether this is written or digital lab notebooks, every lab does it differently, which is totally fine. But the same best practices are important. So you want to record everything in real time. Things like dates, procedures, observations, data points, modifications to protocol. So it's okay if you have a protocol that you repeat many times to just stick it in your lab notebook. That's fine. You can refer to it. But if there's any changes at all, then you have to mark those down. And try not to I know we all have done in the past, but try not to do the write it on a paper towel and then say you're going to write it in your lab notebook later, because you will lose that paper towel or you'll forget what was on it. And so really as much as you can do as you go is great. Now there's lots of details here that you might, that you have to remember to put in. So anything including the concentrations of reagents you're using, volumes, company names, and lot numbers for reagents. This may seem like a really nitpicky thing, but lot numbers are really important for different reagents like tissue culture media. There are batch effects of different lot numbers, and so it can be really critical to keep that consistent and for people to know what those batches are, especially if you're going back after and you're trying to think about whether it had a certain modification or things like that. You can look that up if you have the company name and the lot number down. And then lastly, this is just, of course, important if you're going to understand these notes later, and if somebody else is going to have to understand these notes later, try to be legible with your writing and avoid using shorthand. Even if you think you're going to always remember the shorthand, you want to think about what somebody else is going to need to know to understand your protocols in your lab notebook. Okay, other things you want to include are not just the time points and all of the data, but you also want to include descriptions. So this can include descriptions of why you picked certain time points or why you picked certain reagents or the conclusions you think there are. These things might not be obvious to somebody after who's reading your lab notebook, so it's really good to include that logic. Even when you're doing a PhD, you might be doing a 5 or 6 year PhD. You might not remember the logic from your first year of your master's degree or the first time you did that experiment. So it's really important to keep that kind of documentation to help you. You want to include raw data as well as summary data. Raw data is always important to go back to later because you might have to replot things or go back and reanalyze data. When you're looking at large raw data files, you might not be able to put them in your lab notebook, like sequencing files or things like that, and that's fine. If you want to make references to where you are putting them on a lab server or a cloud or things like that. And again, we'll talk about data management in the next session. You want to stay organized so that people can easily find what they're looking for in your lab notebook. This includes using a table of contents. I also like using sticky tabs of special pages. I know that I refer to a lot. Anything you can do to make it easy to find what you want after. I can't tell you how many times during my PhD I've had to go back to other people's notebooks from like 10 years ago and try to find something. It's really, really hard. So the easier you can make it for yourself and others is much appreciated. And lastly, this is a big one for documentation, especially if you work in industry, is really correcting your errors properly. So whenever you make a mistake, you actually have to cross out and initial it. And in some places, you also have to date it. And that's just because lab notebooks are not supposed to be editable. And so when things are changed, they want to make sure that you change them and not somebody else. So it's a standard practice of ensuring that the changes in there are real and because they're you. And so again, that's why you can't use pencils in your lab notebooks, is because it's supposed to be a permanent record. So do it in pen or whatever else you want to use, but make sure that when you do make a mistake, you cross it out and initial it. Okay. Last point I want to make here is that research is very challenging. There's a steep learning curve and there are many setbacks and failures, and it's completely normal for experiments and research to not work out. It's also really normal for the results to be completely random and not what you expected at all. And this can be really frustrating and draining, especially when you're first getting started in research, especially when you have a short period of time where you want to produce a lot of things. So it's really important to develop strategies for resiliency. The first is just accepting that failure is part of the process. This is what happens to every scientist. It's normal for things to go wrong. 90% of experiments fail or do go wrong, and that's okay. It's inherent to the scientific method. So use it as an opportunity to learn more and to problem solve. So take whatever you get from it and learn from it. And it's also important to remember that some of the most influential discoveries came from unexpected results. So things like how Sir Alexander Fleming just discovered penicillin. He didn't plan that. That happened accidentally because he left his plate out over the weekend and forgot to put it away, and then discovered that there was a mold on the plate that then produced penicillin and then was able to make a life-saving drug from that. So sometimes you don't know what will come when you make mistakes or when you do something differently than what's expected. Sometimes mistakes or failures can be avoided if you ask more questions or get help. So feel free to do that. You're never a bother. There will be times where you can get feedback and that can help you to improve and learn from your mistakes. So be open to that. Whenever you do have a small victory, celebrate it because you might not always have those. So try to see the good in everything and really enjoy when things work out. And lastly, be patient and kind. Things take time, especially if this is your first research project or the first time you're working in this field. It'll take a long time to learn things, and that's normal. So take care of yourself and just try to be kind. If you do need access to mental health and wellness supports, there's lots at UHN that you can utilize. So the first is the BRIGHT program, which is the Building Resilience with Institutions Together with Employees. It's a long name. But you can find this information on the UHN wellness page. They have lots of wellness resiliency practices that you can incorporate into your life. You also have access as UHN employees to free and confidential counseling through the Employee Family Assistance Program. It's completely confidential. You can access it anytime. There's no limit. So that's always an option. They also do counseling specifically on work-related things. So it's great to have other people to talk to if you need. UHN Wellness also plans lots of different kinds of events. They have workshops. They have a gym you could use. They have a walking club. So you can take advantage of all of the things that they offer. And they also have a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for that contains all of the activities that they have. Okay, so while you're doing your research, we also encourage you to take advantage of all of the things at UHN that we offer. And so this can really help you to be able to get the most out of your summer. And so I'm going to just go through a couple of opportunities that are available to you and where you can find them. The first is UHN has this really great calendar of what's happening now. It's a list of all of the learning opportunities and events and activities around UHN. And so this is a great thing to check, once a week and see the different kinds of events. Some of them are clinical, some of them are research, some of them are wellness. It's a wide range of things. You can see all the opportunities that are available to you and sign up for the ones that you're interested in. You can also check out all of the offerings that we have. Like Jordan mentioned, we have workshops and career development events. We have a video library of past events. So if you want to learn about grant writing, but we're not doing the next one until August, you can view past workshops we've had on that topic. You get a weekly email from us with all of the different opportunities that we think that you might be interested in. We also have a funding database that can help you find different grants and awards that you can apply to. And lastly, all of our virtual events are available to you even after you leave UHN. So feel free to continue to check out our website, see the things that we offer and participate as much as you like. Another really, really great learning opportunity that's new to UHN is Percipio, and this is offered by Skillsoft. And it's a virtual learning platform that gives Team UHN access to free self-paced online courses and virtual live courses to advance your skills and professional development. They have lots of different topics. You can take courses on communication and presentation skills, data visualization and management, productivity and collaboration tools, leadership essentials, lots more. There's equity, diversity courses, anything you can think of they have. In addition to taking standalone courses, you also have the opportunity to take certificate courses. So you can actually get a certificate for your learning. One of the most popular ones is a project management one. It's offered by the Project Management Institute, which is an international organization, and all of the hours that you need to do to get your project management certification, like the PMP, can be done on Percipio. You usually have to pay hundreds of dollars for those courses. I took one at UT, it was really expensive. You can do that all for free on Percipio. So it's a great thing to take advantage of while you're here. There's other certificates you can also get on Microsoft Office and lots of others. So definitely something to check out. You can sign in using your UHN credentials. The link is here. Again, it'll be sent out. We'll give you a list of all of the links when we send out the recording. But you can also access it. You've all already been in your My Learning to do your training. There's a big link at the top to Percipio, so you can always find it there. Another thing you have access to, so that for the first time ever, all students at UHN for the summer can join the Cancer 360 Plus program. This is run by the Cancer Education Program. It's a self-paced e-learning series that gives you a 360 view of cancer. You can also join every week. They have Thursday lunchtime Q&A sessions where you can meet experts in the fields. It's a really popular program that used to only be available for Princess Margaret students, but now it's available for everyone. You can also, if you are from Princess Margaret, you can also attend weekly in person, and they have pizza. So if you want to engage in this, you can check out on cancercampus.ca, look for the Cancer 360 Plus program, and then enroll using the code summer 2024. Again, we'll also send out this information so you can access it, but it's a really, really great program. They also have an opportunity to present your research at the end of the summer. I know that many of you might be part of different summer student programs as well as ours. The more opportunities you have to present, the better. I know some summer students last year, they participated in 3 different poster sessions. And so they refined their skills from each one. And so they may not have won at the first one or the second one, but then they won a prize at the third one because they were able to practice more and refine their presentation materials. So if you have the opportunity, you can. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, you want a list of the different programs? No. I think so Cancer 360 and our program are available to everybody. A lot of the other programs you would probably know if you were in them. So there's a medical biophysics one. So if your supervisor is part of that program, then you'll have access to that. We do have a list though, and we'll send it out with the email with everything else. Yeah, good question. Okay, so last thing, all of these events that you can attend and all these learning opportunities are really great because you get to engage with the scientific community. So we really want you to take advantage of as many opportunities you can to meet people at UHN and to learn and network with them. So really, as much as you can, participate in journal clubs, attend scientific seminars, attend any UHN and UHN research events. There's lots of like inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility events. You can come and meet different people. You also have the opportunity to volunteer if you're interested in volunteering. UHN has a great outreach program, which is the UHN STEM Pathways. They do a lot of different outreach events for youth, and so it's a great way to meet other people as well as to build your skills. So it's a really cool program, and all summer students are welcome to engage in that. And really engaging with the science community can help you figure out what you want to do with your career. Some of you may have an idea of what you think you want to do, and some of you might not, and either way is fine. But talking to as many people as possible at UHN can really help you refine what you want to do in the future. And so we'll try to help you do that too with our summer sessions. We'll teach you how to network. We're going to do a networking activity as well as learn some best practices. We're going to learn about informational interviews and how if you meet someone really cool at UHN or you hear about somebody really cool at UHN, you can do an informational interview to learn more about their career. We'll talk about how to do that. We'll help you build networking skills, and then we'll provide opportunities for you to network with healthcare and research staff. So with that, we're going to pause. I know maybe some of you missed the attendance form at the beginning. If you haven't filled it out yet, please fill it out now. We're going to next do an activity that's going to help you to discover your career options and help you navigate that. But first we'll ask, does anybody have any questions from the first half? How are you feeling? Good. Okay, cool. I'll pass it over to Jordan. Yeah. 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 Great question. Okay. So the question is, I said that you can either come in person or you can watch the recordings. How do we track the attendance if you watch the recordings? So after this session, we will put together the recording and we'll put it together on the website. And so you can watch them at any point in time. There will be an attendance form associated with that. And so it'll ask you to fill out the same kind of information here, as well as ask you questions about the session, just so that we can confirm that you watch it. But that's fine. You can do that as well. Like I mentioned, we encourage you to come here because there's going to be sessions like panel sessions where you'll get to network with people. We have activities, but if you can't make it, that's fine. If you can't make it to the research day in person, we'll also provide an alternative method of presenting your poster virtually so that you can still get that credit if you can't attend in person. Yeah.
Will we be able to print the posters or
Great question. There used to be a UHN printing facility where you could print your posters. It doesn't exist anymore. So as far as I know, there aren't any opportunities here, but we will provide you information on where you can get them printed, but we're also very flexible in the design. So we're gonna offer opportunities of how you could do it in a cost-effective manner where you could just print it at Staples and it won't be that expensive, or your lab printer, things like that. So we'll provide a lot of flexible options. Yeah.
How much of it does it have to do with the project? I think most of us were some students were basically helping them teach the students.
Yeah.
How much of it is the things that we work with or the PhD students being work?
Great question. So the question is how much for the poster will it be about what you actually do versus can you talk about the work that you're working on in the lab that's somebody else's project? We'll go through all of this on July 5th at the communications workshop, but I like to think of it more in, we want to hear about what you learned. And so if you choose to not talk about the details of the science at all and instead focus on the biggest take homes you had for the summer, that's great. If you want to go through what the aim of the PhD student project and what they've learned before that helped you to project, that's cool too. We don't have any expectations for you to produce a certain number of data or anything like that. many of you might be in data entry roles or might be volunteering and you're just experiencing different things. You might not have a project yourself. That's fine too. We'll give you all different kinds of options for what you can present. We want everyone to be able to participate. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, great. I'm going to pass this to Jordan.
Can I get a show of hands from everyone if they've heard of an individual development plan before? Is see one in the back? Oh, I see another one over there. Couple people. Cool. So I'm assuming, like myself, when I was in school, I wanted to get a job at the end. So of course, that's something that's really rewarding to myself. That's interesting. It aligns with your personal interests, your academic interests. That's the goal, right? So there are a number of different tools that you can use to kind of explore those personal interests, those academic interests, and kind of bring it together to guide you on your career exploration journey, especially in science with doing a number of science degrees. There's also a lot of different options of things that you can do with those degrees. So more generally, ways that something that you can use to explore a career and explore your different interests is something called an individual development plan, or an IDP for short. So this can be used to do a number of different things, like identify long-term career goals. It can help you make a plan for implementing or improving your skills. You can do things like setting goals for improving efficiency and productivity within your work, as well as you can use it as a way to structure productive conversations with your mentor and about your career plans and development. We'll get into a little bit more in the next slide or two of how that can be done with an IDP. Something that is really cool that was put together by a couple of different scientific organizations out of the US was something called a MyIDP. So this was using the general IDP framework to create a career development plan for careers in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. So this originally was designed for PhD students and postdoctoral researchers, but myself during my master's, this was brought up to us as a cool way for career exploration, and I wasn't a PhD student. And as well, it's a really, really, really great tool that allow you to explore different STEM careers, excuse me. So it might be designed for PhD students and postdocs, but it's definitely a tool that anybody in the STEM field can use. So we'll just go looking at a little bit of what the MyIDP, or the one for STEM career exploration, can look like. So it is a bit of a cyclical process. So it all starts off with a self-assessment. So you're gonna, throughout the self-assessment process, you're gonna think about your skills, what's your scientific skills, what interests you, and what values do you have in the work that you're thinking about doing. The next part is career exploration. So after you do the self-assessment, it'll give you a list of different careers based on your interests and your skills and your values, and it'll suggest a number of different careers that may be of interest to you. And then at this point, you'll learn about these careers. You'll be able to find resources and ways to explore to see if these are actually a match for you. The next part of this, the IDP process, is goal setting. So after you have an idea, or maybe some ideas of what maybe you'd like to do, you want to put a plan in place and some goals to achieve those goals. So part of this process is setting some long-term career goals. So do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? You kind of try to get some ideas of some careers. And then you can move on by doing that. You can break down those large goals and set smaller goals to help you maybe improve certain skills or hit some project completion goals to help you achieve those larger career goals. And lastly, there's the implementation phase. So this is where you'll have the opportunity to seek out different mentors, different people who can help you achieve those goals along the way. A mentor could really be anybody. A lot of times people choose the research supervisors, but could also be, maybe it could be a colleague, it could be a student advisor. It really could be anyone that you think that could help you master certain skills and achieve those large scale goals. I just want to touch a little bit more on the self-assessment aspect of the IDP. So when you are conducting a self-assessment, you are looking at a set of skills and, set of questions and prompts, and you'll be ranking those on a scale from 1 to 5. So you'll be looking, the self-assessment is broken into 3 parts. You'll do a scientific skills assessment, you'll be doing an interest assessment, as well as a values assessment. And at these points, you'll be considering a number of different things and ranking those on a scale. So you'll be thinking about, in terms of on the lower end, so 1, those will be skills that you'll be ranking. If it's like a scientific skill, is this a skill that I'm more deficient in? Versus a 5 is more, is this something I'm really great at, or this is a skill that I know really, really well? When you're thinking about the interests assessment and values assessment, you'll be thinking about things like, is this something I really want to do, or is this something that's really important to me? Those are skills those are things you'd be ranking as a 5. Versus things that I don't really want to do this, or this is not really important to me in my future career. You'll be ranking those on the lower end of the scale. So you always want to consider when doing this things like, what do I enjoy doing? What don't I enjoy doing? And what's important versus unimportant to me? And these are all things will help determine those career suggestions to you. So at the end, as I mentioned, you'll get a listing of some careers that they think match up with your skills and your interests that you put in. I just wanted to show a little bit of, this is a screenshot of mine when I did it. I did think it was a little bit interesting because it is saying that, suggesting that I could be a salesperson, and I really don't think I am much of a salesperson, so I'm not sure how that matches my interests. But based on the skills that I put in, it's suggesting that I have the skills to do this, but not necessarily the interest of doing it. So one big takeaway of this is it can help you identify careers that you want to do, but could also help you identify careers that you don't want to do. And then you can also look into them further. What skills do they find are really important, and what skills that you have versus skills that are important but that you don't have. If you don't have those skills, but that job is super interesting to you, this is where you can incorporate ways of gaining those skills throughout that whole process, finding people who can teach you those skills, going to different workshops, webinars, any different way that you can do, anything you can do to try and build those skills to reach those career goals. So I guess enough of me talking about it. Now it's your turn. So this is the activity for today. So what you'll be doing is, on your computer or your phone, you can go to the website on the screen. So myidp.sciencecareers.org. Also the QR code there will take you to the website. And you'll just need to make an account. It's quite quick. Shouldn't take you too long to make the account. And the task over the next 20 minutes is to complete that 3-part self-assessment. And then we'll have a little bit of a debrief at the end, answer a few polls using Slido, and then we'll be able to kind of gain some insight in some different careers that perhaps you may be interested in. So I'll leave this up for a couple more seconds, and then I'll switch it over. Still see some phones up, so I won't change it just yet. Switch it over. So yeah, maybe. Yeah. And if you have any questions over as you're doing it, please let us know and we can come try and help you on that. All right, so the first question, part of the debrief, is what was your top career suggestion? Curious to see. So again, mine was marketing and salesperson, which again, I think it's very interesting, but let's see. See, medical testing, policy, sport, medical testing, school. No. Sales and marketing, research staff. You can finish, that's okay. Combined research and teaching. Sales and marketing, supportive science project, didn't finish, that's. Teaching, intensive careers in academia.
So I think on this, you can be not only careers that you might be interested in, but learn from other titles and things that other people taught. And see kind of more understanding some areas and the options that are available to you. The platform also lets you learn about the careers. So that can help as well as taking time after this to read about them. Maybe you'll discover something new for insight back they are.
Right. The next one's just a little bit of a like a little bit of a poll. So have you considered or heard about these career paths before? So I guess so that prompts are, I've heard of it, but I've never considered it. I'm not aware of it, or this is a career path that you're considering. I think it's cool too, especially the one that's like, I'm aware of this career, but I haven't considered it. I think this is a really cool way to yes, you've heard of a lot of these careers. There's so many careers out there, but if it's really matching skills and interest to it, it really kind of puts it into a different perspective of something that you may want to consider in the future. And especially too, I expected that I'm not aware of this career path to probably be the second one, just because it's, again, careers in STEM can be so vast. So it's cool to learn about a lot of new careers that you could possibly do. It looks like it's slowing down a little bit. And the last one is, do these career paths resonate with you? It's okay if you don't know. Again, I would answer no to this one for my top one, because again, I don't foresee myself being a salesperson in the future, or now. I'm not one now, so I don't foresee that in the future. But and it's okay if you're just not sure, because this is early in your career exploration process. And if anyone else has anything they want to add, you're welcome to raise your hand. It's always encouraged. Is anything you want to add, you're more than welcome to.
Any of you learn anything about themselves if they were typo? Yeah. No, yeah, it's something interesting to realize that the skills for it. Maybe later on you'll identify a good for it, or maybe you won't. I kind of think this reminds me like when you're in high school and how to do that many careers. And I know my family is gonna be a librarian. So it can be sometimes helpful even just for you to recognize that you don't want that. So good. You have to figure out what you want to do, figure out what you don't.
Exactly. All right, and with that, this is reaching the end of our first learning session. So just a reminder that we have another learning session happening on May 31st in this room at the same time, so 2 o'clock. So we'll be hearing from the UHN libraries on tips for new researchers. And this is the schedule throughout the summertime and then ending off with the research day. Thanks so much for coming. I really hope you guys learned something new and are set up for success as you start working in a lab or whatever type of research you're doing. And again, if you haven't had a chance to fill out the attendance form, we'll leave this up one more time. But again, if you have any questions for us, we'll be here for a little bit longer. So thank you.